So hi everyone, it's Stuart Room and welcome back to my YouTube channel on everything to do with data protection, privacy and security. So how's your week? Did you have a good week? Hope you did. I had a great week. I started a new job. I'll tell you more about that towards the end of the video. But from the data protection perspective, the really important news is that we're a week into Brexit and the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has started to reveal more about the UK's position on data protection in the context of the future relationship with the EU. So to bring you up to speed, the Prime Minister gave a speech in Greenwich on the 3rd of February. Now, just pause a sec. Highly symbolic. If you've not been to Greenwich, you may not know about its history, not just in the context of the Meridian, but also in the context of the UK's naval history. And when you read the speech, you see many metaphors and allegories that are basically saying that the UK will return to its leading position in the global economy, sort of reflecting back to the positions that Greenwich represented. Now, as well as the Greenwich speech, the Prime Minister put a written statement before Parliament about the UK's intentions. So the two documents, the speech and the statement, need to be read together, and I'll show them on the screen as we go along. Now, of course, the speech and the statement are not just concerned with data protection. It's just an element of the content. But data protection professionals quite naturally have honed in on the data protection part, and to be honest, there's been a fair bit of worry and alarm. You know, myself, I've received emails in, phone calls from colleagues in the field, reporters, and they've been asking me, in light of the Prime Minister's speech about data protection, are we going to rip up data protection in this country? Are we facing a bonfire of regulation? Now, what's really at the heart of those concerns is language about, for example, the UK following its own policies on data protection, using the word independent along the way. But I'm not reading the speech and the statement in the way that some people are. I don't perceive that it is a signal that we're going to be burning up data protection at all. And in fact, I think when you look at the totality of the speech and the statement, my view is that they are saying the opposite. So what is the bigger context in the speech? Well, the Prime Minister goes through a long list of achievements that the UK has led in, where the impression is given that the UK has advanced, for example, environmental protection, social protections, in a way that accelerates and exceeds many other places in the world, including in Europe. So he talks about the minimum wage as an example. You know, he talks about emissions reduction. He talks about plastics use. There's a whole variety of stuff. And those examples are presented in the context of what I think is a really important phrase, which is there will be no race to the bottom. And in fact, the Prime Minister asserts that the UK will maintain high standards on matters such as social policy, consumer protection, environmental policy, competition policy, other regulatory zones, as well as data protection. So there are two strands in the speech and the statement. The first strand is that the UK will pursue its own agenda, its sovereign agenda, its independent agenda. That's one strand. And then the other strand is that the UK will maintain very high standards and will be a leading country on matters of social and global and economic concern. So if you reconcile the 2 points, what you get to is a position, I feel, of confidence about the future trajectory of data protection in the United Kingdom. There isn't anything in the statements that suggests that we're going to burn up data protection and end up without the data protection principles, lawfulness, fairness, transparency, accuracy, minimization, security, or the data protection rights, access, portability, the right to be forgotten, erasure, deletion. None of that's there. There is no statement that we won't have an independent regulator, the Information Commissioner, and other independent regulators that have data protection functions. There isn't a single phrase in either document that would cause us to believe that data protections are going to erode in the United Kingdom. And I believe that's the only way you can reconcile the 2 points about independence and high standards. And so this is why the imagery of Greenwich is so important. I mean, the Prime Minister of the UK has advisors who think this stuff through. You can potentially regard it, if you like, as a jingoism. Some people may have that point of view. Or you could turn it around and look at it in a different way. Greenwich, the allegories, the metaphors, what we're really talking about, or rather the Prime Minister's talking about, is a bold and confident United Kingdom taking a leading role in the continuing development of the economy, social policy, consumer protections, etc. Now, what the Prime Minister really does home in on is the need to avoid unnecessary protectionisms. He talks about reducing barriers to trade. And that has an immediate segue back to the whole origins of data protection. Now, data protection, of course, have part of their origins in the European human rights agenda, but they also have their origins in the European economic agenda, the idea of growing the single market. And there's a recognition that in order to have a successful, flourishing, prosperous economy, then we need to maintain personal data flows, that the standards around that have to be at high levels so that human rights concerns do not unnecessarily interrupt data flows. So the Prime Minister, I believe, is actually pointing through the allegory of Greenwich, the metaphors of the bold, confident, seafaring nation, in conjunction with a long list of UK achievements and leadership on matters of protection. He's pointing to a very high standard of data protection in this country. And that is the best route to lowering barriers to trade between the United Kingdom and Europe. And in a previous video, I also talked about the focus and concerns of businesses and consumers. And here's my point. Prime ministers and politicians are reliant upon the support of the voter, the consumer. Turn that into a data protection language, they're reliant on the data subject. Where is the consumer, the citizen, the member of the public, the data subject going on data protection? Is anyone out there marching on the street saying, let's lower the barriers to data protection? No, I'm not seeing it. The arguments are about improved data protections. Think about the concern around facial recognition technology and health data sharing that's being expressed right now. Where the public is engaged, they're engaged on the maintenance of high levels of data protection. And that, I believe, is a vote winner for clever politicians. So there you go. What do you think? Where do you stand? I'd love to know your point of view. I mean, I've got no crystal ball. Your guess is as good as mine. Drop some comments below if you'd like to engage in a conversation. Always keen to hear from people. And if you like the video, can you give it a thumbs up and potentially press the subscribe button to keep up to date on new content. Now, I mentioned before that I've started a new job. So I'm now the global head of data protection and cybersecurity at DWF, the global legal business. I'm really delighted to have joined. I'm really looking forward to getting to know more of my new colleagues and introducing clients and contacts to the business. If you'd like to know more about what I'm doing, drop me a line. I put my email address below in the description. There's also my phone number. And if you want to be kept up to date in a networking environment with peers and colleagues from other parts of the economy, from government and the public sector, why don't you join our data protection and privacy security boot camps, free of charge, really good content, and we'll be expanding upon some of the kind of ideas I discuss in these videos. So, apart from that, have a great week and come back soon.